Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to look at how to create and manage a Rancher Kubernetes Engine version 2, which is RKE2, and Rancher UI using cloud VMs. So for the cloud VMs, I'm going to use Ubuntu machines on GCP to set that up. We will go on further to deploy some web-based applications on there and access it on our browser. Now for some prerequisites, we are going to need the VMs, which are cloud VMs. We will need the RKE2. We also need the Rancher UI. We will also need Helm chart, Kubectl, and some of those CLI utilities. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I'm still a new channel. I'm trying to grow, so be sure to subscribe for more videos in the future. Now, let's get into it. Okay. Now to set up a GCP VM, I'm gonna go to my browser. I have my GCP account open here. If you don't have one, you can create one for free. I'll first navigate to Compute Engine. You see it right there, or you can search for it. So I'll click that to open it. All right, so there's currently no VM instances here if I go to VM. And so I'm gonna create 2 of them. Click Create Instance. Give it some name. I'm gonna call this RKE Master. For the region, I will leave it as US Central 1. Zones, leave it as any. And now for the compute resources, I'm going to keep it as E2 because it's low cost. Now, when you select it, below here, you have different options to select from, whether it's 1 or 2 CPUs or 1 gig or 2 gig or 4 gig memory. I'm just going to leave it at E2 medium, which has 2 CPUs and 4 gigabytes of RAM. The other options for you to pick are on this side. So you need to select all the ones that you need to pick. So let's go to OS and storage. The image here is Debian. So I'm going to click on change and I'm going to change this to Ubuntu. If you want Debian, that's also fine. And for the image version, Ubuntu LTS. So this is for ARM machines. So I'm going to pick this one for x64 or 86. For the boot disk, I'll select standard. For the storage side, I'll make it, let's say 30 gigabytes. I'll select this. Next, data protection. I don't want to set up any data protection plans here, so I will leave it as default. Networking, allow HTTP, HTTPS. Now I'll add one more tag and I will make changes to that later. So my new tag is going to be RKE tag. The host name for my machine, since it's my RKE master, I'll call it master.node. Now I'm going to go to the network tag that I created, RKE, and make some changes to that. Okay, and I'll come back here. So in the search bar, search for firewall policies. This is it. I'll open it in a new tab. So these are your firewall policies. So I'm going to create a new one. Create firewall rule. And now for the name, I'll name it, let's say, allow ports RKE. Now this means we are going to allow the required ports for RKE to run correctly or properly. Use the same thing as the description. Now I'll keep logging as off. For the network, I'll leave it as default. Priority 1000 is okay. Direction of traffic, I'll make it ingress, which is incoming traffic. Action on match, leave it as allow. And then for the targets, I'm going to keep it as specified target tags. Now remember, we used a tag earlier. This is the tag that we are trying to attach to our instance. And so if I specify target tags, that should attach it automatically. I'm going to type the tag that I created, this RKE tag. Source filter, we are using IPv4 versions. Now for the ranges, let's make it 0.0.0.0/0. Ports and protocols. Now this is where you will specify all the required ports for your RKE cluster. Now have a summary of it on the GitHub repository for all the required ports, mainly these ports. There are some more, especially if you have an external etcd cluster. If you also want to check it out, you can go to the Rancher or the RKE website go to quick start. So you see the quick start here. If you go to the requirements, you see all the information that you need. So let's go to requirements. These are hardware requirements that you need. Now for networking, these are all the inbound ports that you need to set up. But at the moment, you don't need all of them, especially for these 3. You usually would need them when you are going to use an external etcd cluster. But in this setup, we are going to use our master node as our etcd cluster as well. So I don't need these 3, but for the rest, I will need them. So that's what we are trying to create here. Okay, so let's go back here. Since we have the summary here, we are just going to use this. For the TCP, we have a couple of ports. We have 6, 4, 4, 3. Now you can separate them with commas. We have 9, 3, 4, 5, 10, 250. And then we have a range for node ports, which is 30,000 to 32,767. So these are all TCP. For UDP, we have 84, 72, 51, 820, and 51, 821. Hit create. This should create the firewall rule. This is it right here. Allow port RKE. Now go back to your compute engine here. We've already added it as a network tag, so we don't need to do anymore. For the rest of the stuff, you don't really need to set it up. I'm going to leave them as default and I'll hit create. And that should start creating your instance. This may take a few seconds. It's ready. Now I want to add one more VM. So I'm going to go to the 3 dots on the side and go to create a machine image. So what I'm doing is using the previous machine that I created, package it as an image, and then use that to create multiple VMs, just to make things a little easier or faster. So I'll give it a name, RKE machine image 00. I'll give it a description, and for the source VM, we are using the VM that we created earlier to create this machine image. So just click there and select your VM. I'm going to use regional. Since we use Iowa for the other one, select US Central one, which is Iowa. And for the encryption, you leave it as Google Managed Encryption, and then hit create. So it's ready. So we have a machine image here that we can use to create multiple machines whenever we want to. So I'm going to click on actions here. You see the 3 dots, and I'll use that to create another instance. So create instance, give it some name. For the name, I want it to be similar to the earlier one. So I will give it RKE worker, same region and zone, same instance E2. Now most of these settings will be exactly the same thing. So go to OS. OS will be from the machine image, which will still be Ubuntu, the same storage 30 gig. Data protection, I will leave it as default. Networking. Now networking, you need to make sure that allow HTTP, HTTPS, and then the network tag that we created should also be there. Of course, it's already there, as you can see here. Now for the host name for this, for the host name of the master, I made it master.node, so I'll make this worker.node. For the rest of the stuff, pretty much will remain the exact same. I will leave it as default. Create. It may take a few seconds to get ready. That's also ready. So next is to SSH into our instances. You can pretty much use different options here. What I will do is just use the browser SSH. So just click on the SSH there and it will start creating a login on this side. I'm going to log into both. So hit authorize. So we are in the master. Clear the screen. Do the same for the worker. Click on the SSH. Authorize it. And we are in the worker. Let's clear the screen as well. So I'm gonna keep them side by side. Make a few changes here for the theme. So I'll make the worker dark and the master light. And of course, whenever you create a virtual instance, I have all the steps here, by the way. You need to upgrade and update it. So I'm gonna run this command on both of them. All right, so both of them are ready. I have some dependencies here that you need to install. I think most of them are installed already automatically, but let's run it and see. Paste it here. Paste it here. The reason why it didn't take too long is because most of these required dependencies are already installed by default on Ubuntu. So that's how you would create your two instances on GCP and connect to them using SSH. Clear the screen, both of them. And now in the next stage, we're going to look at how to install RKE2, which is Rancher Kubernetes Engine 2. So with our systems ready, let's install our RKE2 cluster. Now to install RKE2 cluster, you need to first set up the control plane node or the master node. In RKE2, we call the master node the server node. It's the same thing. We need to set that up first before we set up the worker node. Now again, remember, the white one is the master. You see the master there? And the black one is worker. We are going to set up the master first, so we are using the white terminal for now. Now, if you want the commands, I have everything in the README, but you can also go to your browser. Remember, I opened RKE2 with the link. Go to Quick Start. I basically took everything from here. The only difference is I changed a few things that you may need to change, but it's not that much of a difference really. So stick by the README and it should be fine. First, let's change to root user. Commands are also on the GitHub repository here. So if you miss anything, just come here and you get all the commands as well. Let me actually run it from here since I have the copy toggle here. Run the installer using this command here. Paste it. Once you run the installer, you need to enable RKE2 service. So copy this to enable the service. The service is enabled. Now you can start the service. Now you may not see anything, but it's actually running in the backend. Let's give this a few minutes. Okay, so it's started. If you want to check the logs, you can use this journal huddle command here. And that should help you see the logs. So this is the process that it actually went through, starting the service. And you can exit it with Control-C. Now, there are some changes that we need to make. We need to make sure that the kubeconfig file for our RKE cluster is readable by our user. That is some other configuration that you may need to do while setting this up. Of course, we are currently the root user. Let's check to see if this directory is available. Yes, it is. And there is RKE2 pss.yaml and RKE2.yaml files in there. We need a config.yaml file in that same location. So I'm going to use this vim command here. Paste it here. And that should open the vim. Press I to insert. And now inside it, I'm going to paste this configuration or this line. All this is going to do is to make our kubeconfig readable, writable for our user. Press escape and then :WQ to save that. Now, when I list items there, you see my config.yaml, which I just created right there. Now for Kubectl, Kubectl, and Control, these are installed by default. The only thing is they are installed in different locations compared to the actual locations where Kubectl and stuff are supposed to be installed. Now the location is varlib rancher RKE2 binary. In that case, how do we make sure that we have Kubectl working properly? Let's say I do Kubectl version. You see that it's not found. Now this is not because Kubectl is not installed. It's actually installed, but it's in a different location that the binaries cannot find or cannot locate. So we need to direct it in the right path, which is where we have to export our path. Now the path that we are going to export is this path so that our system knows where Kubectl and all these other command line utilities are. Let's clear the screen. And then I have a few commands here that I've prepared for you. And this is just going to create the kubeconfig directory. Now, usually whenever you create any Kubernetes cluster, this directory is created in your home directory. We don't have it currently here because it's located somewhere else in the var directory. So we have to set all that up. So create this hidden .kube directory. By the way, if you do ls, you will not see it. But if you do ls-la, this is the .kube directory we just created. Now I'm going to copy the kubeconfig from the original installation location there to this current location that I just created. And then I'm going to change the ownership to who am I. Who am I is just the user on this current machine. So when I do who am I, I'm currently icon consult. So I'll just run the two commands together. We need to still export Kubectl from that location to this current location. So use the export command. Export it like this. And now when you run any Kubectl command, just run kubectl get nodes. And now you see that we have one node. Remember, we've only set up the master node at this point, so only one node is recognizable. Now this our master node is the control plane. HCD cluster. Remember earlier we are having a master as our HCD cluster as well. This master.node is the exact same name I gave it from GCP graphic user interface. That was the host name. So that same name will be used here as the name of the node. And you can clearly see it's ready. Let's see if you can get some pods. And these are mostly system pods since we haven't run any pods so far. And these are the system pods at CD, Helm, kubectl, API service, and stuff like that. Before you start setting up the worker node, you need to make sure that you have the token that you will use to join other worker nodes to the master. So use this command. Now when you run this, this is the token. So it's always advisable to copy this and store it somewhere safe. You're pretty much done with the master node. Next, let's work on the worker node. Now it's time to set up our worker node. So let's select the black terminal, which is our worker node terminal. Setting up the worker node is equally straightforward. Similar commands, by the way. The only difference is having to run the token to join it to the master. So first, let's go to the root. And then you need to run the installer. Now the installer is similar to the earlier one for the master. The only difference is this one, the type is agent. Copy and run it here. Next is to enable the RKE agent service. And now you need to configure the RKE2 agent service. You need to create a directory. Now that's because usually that directory is not available on the worker node from the beginning. And then we are going to create a config.yaml file that we did also for the master. Similar commands here. I'm going to paste this command. And that is our file for the config.yaml. Now you need to add this information. Now this is the server and the token. Now the server is going to be the IP address of the master node, but the port is going to be the exact same thing, 9345. Remember that was one of the ports we added. And then the token, we just copy it and paste it there. So I'll paste this here and then I'll make some changes. So on our VMs, this is the master and this is the external IP address. Modify this. That is the IP. The token is right here. Copy it. And paste it there like that. WQ to save and exit. Now let's start the service. This may take a few minutes. So that is ready. Again, if you want to check the logs for the worker node as well, you just need to run this journal cuddle command and you see all the logs. I'll exit out of this using Control C. Get nodes. Now I have 2 nodes. The new node is the worker node that I just created, which is right there, added 79 seconds ago. In our next step, I'm gonna create a sample application and deploy it on this Kubernetes cluster. Let's see how that can be done. This is gonna be a simple NGINX deployment. So I'm gonna copy this command here, clear the screen, run kubectl create deployment. This just creates the deployment. Kubectl get deploy. This is the deployment, it's already running. When I run get pods, this is the pod running. Next, I want us to be able to access this app from the browser. So you need to expose it using a service. Let me copy this, paste it here. This is going to expose the deployment NGINX, which is right there, which runs on port 80 via a node port. In order to use a node port, when we started, we did add some ports. Need to make sure this was added for it to work. That's why I added those ports. Now the reason why is because in GCP, load balancers are not automatically created for Kubernetes services. Unlike on AWS. On AWS, whenever you create a load balancer service, a load balancer is automatically attached to it. GCP doesn't do that. That's why our type is also node port. Press enter and this should start exposing it. Now let's look at our services. Kubectl get service. And this is our service. And now node port is 3274. On my VM instance, go to the master, copy the public IP address, open your browser, paste it there. Pull on the node port, which is 3274. Press enter and you see NGINX homepage right there. So that's how you can create an application on your RKE cluster. By the way, before we go next, I'm just going to clean it up. I'm going to remove the deployments that we just created. So kubectl delete deploy and the deployment name is NGINX. When I get deploy, it's empty. When I get pods, it's also empty. What about services? The service is still there, so I need to remove the service. So delete service, and now service is also NGINX. That's done. Get service, and that's gone. So I've pretty much deployed and removed everything at this point. I'm gonna clear the screen, but let's make sure this is not active anymore. Refresh, and it goes down. All right, so we can close this, and now I can clear the screen. So our next stage is how to set up Rancher UI to manage our cluster. Instead of managing it from the terminal, we want to be able to manage it from a graphical user interface from our browser. So you have a few commands here you need to run on the master node. By the way, for this, you need to have Helm installed on your system. So just Google how to install Helm and you get a command. It's a single line command like this. So just copy that. By the way, let's check our nodes first. Make sure you have our 2 nodes. To install Helm, run this command here. Helm is installed. In order to install Rancher UI, you need to add the repo for Rancher. And this is the location for the repo for Rancher. So run this. Okay, so that will add the repo to bring it up to date. Once that is done, the next thing you need is to install a cert manager. Now that's because Rancher requires a cert manager for you to set it up. In our case, we are going to set up a self-signed certificate, and that's going to handle the TLS certificates for us. In a production environment, you have to use an actual certificate that is issued by a CA. You can use Let's Encrypt. You can use any other CA out there or certification authority. For that, you need to create a namespace called Cert Manager. And now you need to add just stack repo, which has the charts. Next, install the Cert Manager. Of course, you need to specify the namespace we just created, the version of Cert Manager you are installing. Press enter. This may take a few seconds. So you see that Cert Manager 1.14.2 successfully deployed right there. Let's check the path. And you can see the Cert Manager parts are all running. Now is the time to install the Rancher itself. We're going to create a new namespace called Kubectl system. And then install Rancher with a self-signed certificate. You're going to modify this command a little bit. You're going to paste it here. Then modify it. Now the bootstrap password for Rancher is admin. But once you log in, you'll be asked to change your password. We need to make sure that our control plane UI IP address is set up correctly. So here should be your control plane's public or external IP. Let's go to our browser, VM. This is our master node IP address. Paste it there. So the command should look something like that. The IP address .nip.io. Now the .nip.io comes from the self-signed certificates that we created. Press enter. So it's successfully created that. Rancher server has been installed. Go back to the README. By the way, I added a comment here to replace the IP address. You see that there are two commands here. We have an echo command and then we have a kubectl command. Now the kubectl command here is the bootstrap password. And then the echo command, this will get you started. When you run this should get you started with Rancher. So just copy them and run them. This is the echo command. Run it. This is your Rancher URL. Copy that. Go to your browser. Paste and go. And this is Rancher. So use advanced. This is because we are using a self-signed certificate. And that's why you can see the external IP.nip.io. It shows invalid security certificate. And that's because it's self-signed. You see it right there. Accept risk and continue. Run the kubectl command here. This should give you your bootstrap password. Paste it here. Press enter. But the bootstrap password is just admin. So our password is admin. And you'll be asked to change your password. So I'm going to use this randomly generated password here. Make sure that I copy this. And you need to make sure that your server URL is exactly that. It should have the IP address. But sometimes when you set it up, this will have the local host and it will start giving you problems. So make sure it's the IP address of your instance. Your master node, by the way. Continue. All right. So when you open the Rancher UI, it will look something like this. By the way, if you want to examine it a little bit, you can click on this and you should see all the resources. You have 2 nodes. These are the worker and the master nodes. You have 11 deployments. There are so many parts running. You can also go to this side if you want to check more interesting stuff. These are the events. Go to workloads. There are currently no workloads. Daemon sets deployments. Stateful sets parts. Now there's so much to do here. When you go to apps, here you can install other apps that you may need, especially stuff like external etcd cluster. You can create one here using Longhorn. You have Istio here. You have CIS benchmarking for pen testing a Kubernetes cluster. You have Prometheus monitoring, and so much more stuff that you can do with this. Every now and then, new apps are being launched. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to look at how to create a deployment using this Rancher UI. Okay, so we need to set up a sample deployment using our Rancher UI. By the way, another thing you can do here is, instead of checking stuff from your terminal here, let's say running Kubectl, get nodes, you also have an access to terminal inside this Rancher UI, which is this command right there. It gives you the Kubectl shell. Currently disconnected, but you can use this also to access your terminal. Now let's create our deployments in the meantime. Go to workloads. Currently there are no workloads here. We want to create a deployment, so go to deployments. There's nothing here. By the way, when you check out terminal, Kubectl, get deploy, there's no deployment there. So create. Now when we check deployment here, we are checking the default namespace. So let's use the exact same thing to see if it's gonna create it in there. So the namespace should be left as default. For the name, I'm gonna give it some unique name. Let's say UI app. You can give a description if you want to. Let's make this replica 3. Now on the container-o, this is where you provide your container information that you want to run. For the name, let's just leave it as container-o. For the image, let's use the NGINX image we used earlier. You can add the tag latest, but if you write NGINX, it uses the latest tag anyway. So let's scroll down. Under networking, we want to access this app on our browser, so we need to add some services. So add some services. For the service type, of course, we don't have a load balancer. At least you haven't attached one yet. Let's use the node ports, the previous example. And then for the name, let's call it UI app service. For the private container port, that is port 80. Protocol is TCP, of course. And the listening port is going to be the node port that you want to give it. We can specify a particular node port we want it to run on. So let's say 30,080 or 30080. That's the node port I'm giving it. That is for networking. Now, if you want to add some more commands, environment variables, other stuff, you can do that. But I'm not going to do that for this exercise. So I'll hit create. And you see that it's creating it and it's active. Since it's active, if you go to our terminal and get deployed, you should see it here. This is the UI app we just created that has 3 replicas. If I get parts, you should see all the 3 replicas, all of them running. Get the services, and that is the node port service that we've attached to it. Now the cluster IP service always comes automatically by default, so that's okay. And this is the node ports that we gave it, 30,080. So we can again take the VM instance, public IP address, go to your browser, paste it here, we gave it node port 380, and you get the exact same application there. By the way, you can get more information about this app. Go to workloads. This is our new workload, which is a deployment. You can go in to get more information. There are 3 parts or replicas running. These are the 3 parts. And you can see this is the exact same names you see right here. Okay, it's the exact same parts. All the services are also here. If there are ingresses, conditions, or any related resources, they will all be in here somewhere. All right. By the way, you can also go to any app and get its YAML configurations by clicking on YAML. Okay, this is the configuration of that pod that I clicked on. You go to the details, then you see the GUI. So this is very convenient in Kubernetes management. Now you see that this was a single cluster with 2 nodes, 1 worker, 1 master. So imagine you have 100 Kubernetes clusters, each cluster with, let's say, 10 nodes, and you need to manage it. It will be very difficult doing it all from the terminal. Having to switch context here and there, it's going to be very complicated. So using a tool like Rancher, you can have all your clusters in one place. At the moment, I only have 1 cluster, so you only see 1 cluster here. But if you have multiple clusters, all of them will be in the exact same place, so you can easily switch from one cluster to the other. I don't know why the Kubectl shell is not working, but let's try again. Yeah, so it's worked now. If you want to check using terminal on the Rancher, connect that, and then let's get the nodes. See, I get the exact same 2 nodes that I got from the terminal. Let's see if you get the parts. Make it a little bigger. So Kubectl, get parts, and these are the UI app parts that are running. Exact same thing we get from our terminal here. So it's very convenient. I'm gonna close this. Now at this point, let's clean up everything in order not to get charged, because we are using GCP VMs, so we don't want to get charged. First, I'm gonna remove the resources, delete deploy, and our deployment that's currently running is UI app. By the way, when I delete it, you see that the deployment number is shutting down. It's reducing over there. We need to remove the services as well. Delete service. That's UI app and UI app node port. You should also delete the services. Now let's remove the Rancher. And I have all these commands in the README, by the way. If you forget anything, just look it up. This is the Rancher. First, you need to remove the namespaces that we installed. We installed 2 of them. Now remember, we installed it using Helm, so you can use Helm to remove the namespaces like that. Those been successfully uninstalled. After removing the namespaces, you're just gonna stop and disable the Rancher. Now for this, you need to run it on both of your nodes since we installed them. This was for the control plane, so that's why you see we removed. So paste both of them here, and this should also remove the RKE2 agent for the worker node. Now it's time to remove RKE2 from both of the nodes. So paste this here, paste it here also, and let it finish cleaning up. Both of them are done. You can close these 2 SSH portals, and now we can go to our Compute Engine on GCP and remove the other stuff that we need to remove. So the first thing is to go to our VM and delete them. But before we do that, let's go to the firewall rules. By the way, I actually opened it here, so you can use this page too. This was the firewall rule that we created, which is allow ports RKE. So I'll select that, hit delete. It take a few seconds to delete that. You see a notification there, deleting firewall, so it's deleted. And now you need to go to your Compute Engine. This is our Compute Engine. Select both of these, delete. Last thing, let's make sure the disk is removed properly. Alright, so there's no disk here, that's good. Now when you go to machine images, the machine image that we created earlier is still available. So let's delete that as well. We don't need it. That's also gone. Like, comment and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and I'll see you on the next one.